welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are here to tell you a little bit more about Scrib folders, and we have a great story ahead. We hope you're enjoying your summer and preparing for a great school year. We know that part of the process of preparing for a new school year means moving, shuffling, and sorting student cumulative records and files. So that's why we're really excited to introduce you to Scott Hansen and Kristi Miller from the School District of Manatee County in beautiful sunny Florida. Kristi and Scott, how are you today?
Hi, we're doing good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Hope everyone's doing well. I just got back off of vacation, so I'm not doing quite as well as I was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, goodness. Tell me, where did you go?
Went to Alaska.
Oh, I just got back from Alaska about a month ago. Did you have a great time?
I did. It was a great experience.
Good, good. Yes, it is very different than Florida. I hope you brought your bear spray. We did not. We did not bring our bear spray, so we learned quickly about the bears. Well, thank you both for taking time out of your day to share with us about your Scrib folder journey. I know we have a lot of questions for you, so if you're ready, we're going to get started.
Absolutely.
All right. So tell us a little bit more about the School District of Manatee County, your mission, vision, values. Just tell us a little bit about the district.
Sure. Well, education with innovation and imagination, and I would tell you the transformation that you have to complete with the student cumulative folders and electronic records. You definitely need to have innovation and you need to have imagination. So, and some hard work as well, and appropriate planning. So we are a district, if you count our 13 charter schools in our traditional schools, we are right at 50,000 students. We are a B school district. We just received we just almost made an A this year. Our school district is, our ultimate goal is to become an A district for the first time, and we're getting closer. We moved up again in the rankings of the 67 districts in the state of Florida. We're at the highest rank that we've ever been. So we're almost there. Our teachers and our school administrators, our students, and our community members have done a great job supporting our district, and hopefully we'll get over the hump this upcoming year. So we're excited.
That is exciting. Kristi, anything you want to add to that?
I think that sums it about up. We've got, I think, about 64 schools with our charters involved. So we're working primarily with our mainstream schools. So we've got just a little over 50 schools that we're starting our project with. And right. Innovation and creativity is definitely a key.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear more about that as we kind of go through some of these questions, innovation and yeah, the creativity there. Because a lot of times, especially when you're talking about like folders and paperwork and stuff, there's not a lot of creativity there. So I'm very excited to hear what you have to say about that. So can you tell us a little bit more about your individual roles? Sure. Kristi, we'll start with you if that's okay, or Scott?
No, Kristi, ladies first.
Okay, ladies first.
All right. Well, I'm the supervisor of the Property Records and Records Management Department. We actually oversee physical inventory, financial assets throughout the district. And we also manage the retention and the storage and disposal of department and student records. Before we went digital, we were primarily archiving records 5 years after a student graduated or was intended to graduate. But we've also added managing the scanned active student records now. We do the school-to-school student records transfers and also manage records requests for the elementaries, middle schools, and then the 5-year postgraduate high school students.
Okay, and Scott?
Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Hansen, Chief Technology Officer. I am entering my 4th year here in the School District of Manatee County. Excited about that. Previously, I spent 20 years in another school district north of here, actually a school district in which I graduated from. So never thought I would leave that school district, but both my wife's a teacher here in Manatee County as she was in the school district to the north, actually completed a very similar project before I left that school district after spending almost 20 years there. So Real excited about the opportunity here. And lo and behold, when I arrived, I knew there were some projects that the school district had envisioned. They had tried this once before, and one of the many reasons why it was very exciting to take on this opportunity was to lead a team through this process once again. One of many projects that were kind of on the table for me to lead with our team. So. Like I said, it's been a fast 3 years. We're going into year 4. And this project, which we've kind of coined Project Digitize for our school district, was an initiative that came about through a number of challenges that had occurred in the school district. One being it was tried once before and it was unsuccessful. 2, there were some findings, audit findings with student records that brought it to the attention, obviously, of leadership and the school board members. So this was something that was certainly, being driven, and the board was eager to have this project move forward. So I used basically with our team, and we obviously, different school district, about the same size, but we took the shell of that plan, and our team, our Project Digitize team, which was made up of a number of different team members, Kristi and her team, our student demographics team, all the way from our site support services team. We took that plan and we modified it to fit the needs of our school district here. So we made some tweaks. Then we presented that plan, funded the plan, went through the selection process. And I know we'll kind of get into some of those questions, but I think that part of that journey was an effective plan to carry out something. And then we, like I said, we tweaked it, modified it right before we go live to make sure it was appropriate for our school district here in Manatee County. And, as of today, we're taking the rest of July off, what's left of it. We'll take August off, and then we'll start scanning back at schools. But as of today, and Kristi will correct me if I'm wrong, we're 23 of our 52 school sites, traditional school sites, are completely scanned, all grade levels. And they're only scanning as they get paper in any manner in that those team members at those schools are now completely scanning. There are no more paper-based records at those 23 sites. And each month we'll do so many schools, and by the early spring of 23 we'll be done. Hopefully a little faster. We put some dates out there, and now schools that see that 20 plus schools are completed, we've got some principals calling in going, hey, we really want to get our school done earlier now. So that's a good thing, but we're 23 schools into it, and we're looking forward to September to get back in and start scanning. Right now, schools are still, the schools that have not completed scanning, they're doing a lot of purging right now and prepping. Purge and prep, as we call it.
Okay. I have so many more questions for you now, and I am going to ask one kind of out of order. So Emma, you don't have to change it just yet, but you were talking about 23 different school sites and they were all scanning. So I hope that you can share with us kind of did you have training, directions? Are there certain ways that you have set up that process? Because I can imagine 23 different schools doing things 23 different ways. So can you just share with us like how you got all those teams, all those members to go in the same direction?
Yeah, well, like I said, we don't have enough time on the call today, but I am certainly willing and able to. Our team will certainly share documents to any district that would like to see them, and they can modify them if they wish. So we have everybody pretty much running on the same playbook, and it's a standardized Project Digitize is a district managed project. It starts with, we developed an operating procedure. So our team, obviously you've got a number of different departments that are involved, mainly Kristi's team, which is obviously overseeing a lot of the day-to-day management of the program, and student demographics, which is basically for our schools that are on the call or might be listening in the future to the recording. Our student demographics is, some districts might refer to it as their MIS department, or the state reporting department, or the department that kind of oversees and provides direction to school-based registrars who is doing the enrollment of the students. That department kind of oversees that at the district level as well. So those are our two key departments from a day-to-day management of Scrib or Scrib folders. The the planning portion of it, to keep everybody on the same page, is everything is standardized from the scanners that we purchase to the scanners that we put, the models that we have. We allow principals, they selected the different types of staff members at their school who are going to be scanners. We left that up to the principals, but we basically used a formula to determine initially how many scanners would be at each school, whether it's elementary, middle, and high. And then from there, we made some adjustments, obviously. But overall, that's how we initiated that process from a scanning perspective. And then we really drove home the approach of it's going to be a team to complete this project. It can't rest on the shoulders of one. Now, our team took a little different approach than what many districts would have done. I'm a big believer in the IT department that we're going to use our staff across the board, that others' duties as assigned. So we're actually going out. Our schools are in charge of prepping and purging the records before we get there. And then we bring a scanning team, our Project Digitized scanning team. It's made up of Kristi and her department, members of our student demographics department, myself included. I will happily say I think I've approached 500,000 scans myself. So I go out with the Project Digitized team, and I think I've missed 3 or 4 of the 23 schools. My schedule didn't allow me to do all schools, but my supervisors like Kristi, she's out there scanning. Our director in student demographics and supervisor in that department scanning. I pull some supervisors on my team from site support. I pull them. If you're part of technology, you're going to be part of our project. And our schools have the hardest job each and every day. And that's obviously our teachers teaching the kids. And then we're short staffed just like everyone else in the country. So we've asked our schools to do the purging and the prepping. We go out there and assist with that purging and prepping as well. And before we come on site with their scheduled scan date, we send one of our state reporting specialists out there from our student demographics department, and they quality check the records to make sure they're ready to go. And if they give us the green light, we arrive at that elementary, middle, and high. By and large, if it's an elementary and middle school, we're completing the scan of all grade levels. So pre-K to, or we can just say K to 5 right now. We do the pre-K records as well. And then middle school 6, 7, and 8. We pretty much get done with all of those schools in one day. We'll have anywhere from 7 to up to 12 people on our scanning team, scanning records. Some days we get done in a half a day. And our site support team, which oversees daily, computers, scanners, any peripheral equipment in the schools, they're in charge with moving our pod of scanners that we have for our Project Digitized team into the school, getting it set up in a media center generally is where we do it at. If it's a high school, it's probably going to take us 2 days, depending on the size of the high school. So it's a team effort, complete team effort. And all the records are laid out, ready to go. And then Kristi and her team have a process that she can share about the manifesting. And basically with Kristi, jump in here, so I'm not the only one talking, but I guess within probably 3 to 5 days after we are done scanning, Kristi's already arranged for all the paper-based records to be manifested and logged. And then the warehouse comes and picks them up, and we take them to their final destination to rest.
Wow, it's quite a process. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but you can tell that you guys really thought it all through so that this is just going to be pretty seamless from this year. That's incredible that you've done that much scanning. So before Scrib folders, where did you store your cumulative folders and how did you access them?
Heel-toe express at the school level, in cabinets, in a secure room, all the requirements, had to be in a vault for fire purposes, fireproof, lots of records, the standard, go down to the office, sign in a log form, check out the record, bring it back. One of the challenges and one of our audit findings and one of the things that really occurred just a few years ago was district level resources and district positions, whether it's ESE, site services, some of the specialized services at the district office. them not being able to get to the record in a timely manner to do a review was a challenge. And I think that's of any school district. It takes a while to travel from school to school. In our school district, the infrastructure and roadways, we're a little traffic jam. People like to come here for vacation. So it takes, 30 minutes to go 6-7 miles sometimes. And sometimes it can take 45 minutes to an hour to go between schools. So having records readily available for the right resources, whether it's at the school level or even at the district level, to review the appropriate records to make sure that we're providing the services to all our students is critically important. And I think we're starting to see, as we've scanned 20 plus schools, we're starting to see that buy-in and individuals even at the district level starting to see that. Our registrars at the schools have started to see the benefit to it as well, because you can get lost in all that paper. Kristi and her team and our student demographics team with our records manual and putting that records manual together to really ensure that we've gone over and provide a good business process, if you will, to ensure that we have those questions answered and that we're available for everyone and to keep all schools on the same page. And the other thing is we've got two major deadlines that we're required by statute here. School transfer, 3 days to make a record available. Parent request, I think it's 30 days. So we've got to really make sure that we're meeting those deadlines for the transfer of records. There's some other statutory requirements for getting records and other specific records in a student record as well. One of the things that we really liked when we kind of vetted different products, there's lots of document management systems out there. If somebody said, why Scrib? I would say in my former district, we used a different product, very, very same shell template that we used here in Manatee with the tweaks that were right for our school district here in Manatee. But we liked that Scrib kind of had a K-12 niche. And we liked that the integration and the seamless integration with the transcript process that we're using currently. That's what we first rolled out, and we kind of did that as a pilot initially. And Kristi's team is charged with managing the transcript process. And I think that's where the partnership really kind of formed, and we saw the benefit there. So then we started looking at, if we're going to move student records into a repository, we really wanted that seamless integration with the transcript piece. And so that really made a lot of sense. With Scrib folders coming online, being a new product, we also kind of liked, although as I've done this for 20 plus years in K-12, I probably today at a little less risk than I normally would 10, 15 years ago. But I really liked the Scrib team was really open to allowing us to provide a lot of initial feedback in the development of the product a year and a half ago, and still is today. And they've been quick to respond to some of those enhancements that we really feel that are not just important to Manatee County, but we think that if you're in K-12 and supporting students and you're going to go down this road, this journey, if you will, of digitizing student records, we believe some of the things that we've asked Scrib to put into the product from an integration standpoint are going to be something that all districts will be able to leverage regardless of their size, small, medium, or large. So Kristi, do you want to add to that?
I would just add also that we've got a warehouse full of records. We've got probably about 3,000 boxes of records. So that was becoming quite cumbersome for our team to try to locate. Basically, you've got to find the right pallet that it's on, find the right box on the pallet, pull it down, search through paper boxes. So this being able to digitize everything has really made a big difference for our team in completing records requests within the state statute required timeframes.
So Kristi, on our next question is, how much on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you miss having to move all those records? So I'm going to guess you're pretty happy about that.
I would say negative 47. Yeah, no, we're still moving a lot of boxes right now just because we're in the heart of this project. But ultimately there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The boxes of files were, put together at the school level and sent to our warehouse for us to store or dispose of, as the case may be. I would say that each school has a little different priority level that they've assigned to that process, and sometimes there'd be turnover in registrars or whoever was tasked with cleaning up the files and boxing them up, and they would just get a backlog, or we would have to reach out to them for files that would have normally been scheduled to be sitting in the warehouse, and that would add time to our work as well. So fun was probably not on the list.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. No,
but it's getting better.
So our next question is what made you change? What made you what made you decide to change the process you had? Scott, you started to speak to that regarding implementing script transfer, and it just was more of a seamless process, having the records and digitizing them, sending them securely through script transfer. Is that really what made it? Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know. I saw that. Sorry, I saw I had two questions there, so I wanted to make sure I answered those. So I'll leave it up to you to make sure I answer those questions. So
our question and answers, yes.
So I just want to make sure I didn't. I can answer it after I answer this question. But
okay, that sounds good. Or we can do them at the end as well.
When Kristi was talking, I saw it down there, so I was trying to multitask.
Oh, and our team can also answer some of those questions as well, because we know a little bit about your process, but we will definitely answer those. But go ahead, Scott. What were you saying about the process and
so what made you decide to change the process you had from? So we made two changes. So is that question from paper to electronic?
Yeah, we're really just kind of speaking to script folders, but it sounds like there was more to it than just that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, so two things. I mean, obviously, as I stated earlier, our district previously tried to do the transition of the paper folder to digitizing student records, and it didn't go very well. It kind of stopped, and then it stopped and ceased to exist, and it was put to the back burner. This can't be done. This is too challenging. And really, I think, obviously, I wasn't here. I don't want to play armchair quarterback, but I think ultimately there just wasn't an overall structured plan across the board, and it wasn't articulated or communicated, nor were the expectations. And I think projects have to have a start and end date, and people have to understand what's going to be involved and set those expectations. So I think our team collectively did a really good job of doing that and making sure that we're all on the same page. And we have that business process or operating procedure, but there were a few things that made us change that process. Number one, as I said, some auditing concerns, some frustration of lots of different resources, staffing resources, who were not able to get to the records they needed to in a timely and efficient manner. High turnover rates. Our district is really no different than other districts, probably in Florida or elsewhere. Our school-based registrars, often that's a high turnover position. So having consistency there across the board was critically important. We also had, not just in paper, but we had a lot of files because this project started and stopped a few times. We started getting really fragmented on where our records were at. We had some state level systems where records were being stored. We had some local shared drives and SharePoint, another third-party system where files started to be getting scanned, and then certain specialty departments started putting certain records in their own area because they were trying to really survive the paper rush. And that's what kind of led to, we had these records everywhere. So how could somebody show up in one location, check a folder out, think they were looking at an all-encompassing student record, and ultimately maybe they were not. So we had to bring all those pieces together in our plan and make sure that to the best of our abilities, we get things in a central location. And took a lot of planning with meetings with those specialty departments, getting their input, but also at the end of the day, making sure that our structure is one in which is embraced across the district. And it is a standardized district project today. And I think at the end of the day, once the schools see that, they embrace it. They want that, and they want to be heard, but they also want some structure. And I think once they see that structure is in place, they buy in. We didn't note this earlier, but out of the 23 schools, 3 of those schools, they were each elementary schools, but we really started scanning mid to late March is when we kicked this thing off. And 3 of the 23 schools, a single registrar, and these are elementary schools that range from, I think one was around 500 students, the other 2 probably pushing 700-800 students. Those 3 schools, 3 of the 23 schools were 3 of them were elementaries. The registrars scanned between March and about a month ago. They scanned all their grade level records all themselves. So they did. So we've got some folks, and then we've got some other schools doing that now, where we kind of check on them, and they're like, "We're going to scan all our files. We got this." Wow. So that was pretty cool, because originally when I stood up and communicated to the principals of this plan and kind of showed them the timeline, I didn't have sharp objects thrown at me, but I had those. I had that stare of, "You're nuts. This has already been tried again in the district. This is not going to work." When I put the timeline out there, they kind of looked at me like I was nuts. Mm-hmm. But now, like I said, we've got 3 schools that have completed the scanning on their own, and now that word gets out, and everybody likes to be competitive, I think, in some way. So we've got some other registrars going, "Wait a minute, if they've done it, I can do this as well." So, and like I said, we've got some other schools calling us now, going, "Hey, our purging prepping is done. We'd like to move our schedule up now and get scanning where we're doing everything electronic." So
that's terrific.
So yeah, so I think overall it's been embraced, but again, creating a systematic way and really embracing that it's very important that these records are in a central location, and for those that need access to them, that we've got some security wrapped around it, our processes in place, and our educators that need to view these records can get to these records so they can make good decisions for our students.
Perfect. Those are some dedicated data workers for sure, data managers. So why Scribbles? Why was it Scribbles when you were saying there's lots of different products out there? Why did you select Scribbles?
Sure. I'm gonna let Kristi hit. I'll certainly touch on a couple of things. Kristi, you want to kind of jump in there and add some points from your perspective?
Sure. Well, to be honest, we started with Scribborder and had such a great launch and success with that product that, of course, your Scrib folders and Scrib Online products and whatnot were vetted as part of our process. We did look at a few vendors, some more focused on the K-12 venue than others, and just basically vetted everybody to see who had the product that was going to fit our needs the most. And because of the history that we had already had with you guys and the success that we'd had, I think that kind of tipped the scales in the Scribbles' favor.
Very good. Thank you. And what about the your internal folks? Scott, you were saying that there were some non-believers at first, and it seems as though you have been able to sway them.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think anytime a project, regardless of what it is, whether it's a project at your own home that you started and didn't have success with, or it's one that, our organization, our school budget is, we're close to $1 billion annual budget here in Manatee County. So I think, it's anytime you have people can make you succeed and people can make you fail. And I think going through this process and kind of articulating to them the previous challenges that we had, and then figure out why why we kind of failed or we weren't initially successful early on. And quite frankly, I think in many cases, again, I wasn't here at the district, but some of our team members certainly were. I think that from a district perspective, I don't know that in the previous project that our our district team, our project, in which in this case it's our IT team, Project Digitize, I don't know that they were completely embraced at supporting the school. So it was a district level project, but yet pushed it out into the school. And whether it's 1, 2, or 3 people, they were kind of out on their own. So I believe that's probably why it failed. And I think by them early on, us kind of saying, okay, if you can purge and prep and get the records, we're going to send somebody out there. And in some of these cases, our team, Don Sauer and Darlene Black, who are director and supervisor in student demographics, their team members were charged with going out and assisting. If a school looked like they were struggling in the purging process, then we had purge and prep days in March, April, and May for some of those 20 schools, and we went out and helped them do that as well. So it was making sure that the schools knew, those stakeholders knew that we were here with them in this project, that we weren't just pushing it down and saying good luck and complete it by this deadline. I think as they started to see our team show up at 7 and 7:30 in the morning, and we were there for the duration until we scanned the last record, I think that created that the positive energy, if you will.
Right.
But you know what? The district's in this project with us. They're just not pushing it down and stating that. So I think that was important. And I think communication at the end of the day and setting those expectations, but let them know that we're in this project all the way to the end with them, right, and making sure that we support them and that we articulate and have a good working document, our business process document, or we call it our standard operating procedure. All of our team members, they have that document available. They look for it. If it doesn't have the answer on it from the question that is asked of them, they know to go to their immediate supervisor, and then we're communicating one thing and keeping that consistent communication. Because again, we have a large team now that's on this across the multiple departments. We want to make sure we're communicating the same thing across all schools. So I think those were the things that they were worried about, because maybe there was inconsistent communication, mm-hmm, and a lack of overall teamwork from the district. So the schools were probably a little skeptical about that. Yeah, it sounds like you have a great partnership with everybody kind of working together. So what's the most interesting, unique, special thing that you guys have done with a space that you have now that records are not in those spaces? Have you done anything unique, different? Have you carved out, some additional learning spaces or anything like that because of the record digitizing? Not yet. I mean, principals, that's their own domain. So as records start going out of those vaults, I mean, that's for the principals to decide. That's their space. And I wasn't born yesterday, so we're not going to share with the principals. Can do whatever space is cleared from the records. I'm sure principals will make best use of that space, but that's not something that we're going to get involved with at the school level. I think they're just happy that they're not dealing with boxes and boxes and file cabinets of records and the filing of records. And we've got a good process that we've articulated about when those paper documents come in, they get scanned. There's a process to send those documents and what to do with them. And they know it's done. And I think at the end of the day, because we're still kind of overall, I would say early in the actual project of scanning, or almost approaching half the schools completed, but we haven't had time, quite frankly, to think about open spaces. And I think in Kristi's team, as she mentioned, we're getting ready to ship our first large batch of records. We're doing a lot of the scanning of active student records and active employees, because we're also scanning all our personnel folders. So right, active personnel and active student we're scanning. We'll be outsourcing the inactive student records, the majority of them, of those 3,000 boxes that Kristi mentioned. Her team is prepping those boxes. We'll be sending those to Scrib, and our first, I think her team is getting ready to send off the first 150, 200 boxes here shortly, later this month or 1st of August. So inactive records, the Scrib team will scan. We're focusing on active records, and we're almost complete. I think we have 40 boxes of personnel records, and we'll have the entire 6,000 employees on the personnel side scanned. I think we're down to our final few letters, and we've completely scanned all personnel records. And interestingly enough, as I said, our team is part of this project. So, because I think it's important for any school district to realize that it takes more than one department or 5 people to do something like this and pull it off. But interestingly enough, I didn't make, as a cabinet member in our school district, I didn't make at least any friends when I lobbied for this next thing. But in our superintendent or our building where I work at, our administrative assistants for our cabinet members, they've all been tasked with scanning 1 personnel box per week. So my assistant scans a minimum of 1 box per week, but any cabinet member that has an assistant or an executive assistant secretary, if you will, they're part of this process as well. So personnel is doing all the prepping of the records, but they're hiring and they're doing all these things. They're short-staffed. They're prepping the boxes, and then our administrative assistants on our 5th floor for all the cabinet members, they're all required pretty much the goal. It's a goal. Some weeks they get 2 boxes, some weeks maybe a box, but we shoot for 1 box per week. And we started that 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago. And like I said, we're down to our final few letters. So about 40 boxes, and we'll have all active personnel files completely scanned. And we're well ahead of schedule there. We were originally not due to have that completed until January of 23. We should be done by the end of August, mid-September with those final 40 boxes.
Wow, that's impressive. So our last question is just kind of like last final thoughts and what you would want to share with other people. But before we get to that question, I am going to ask you some of these questions that have been coming in. Have you scanned special ed records?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Okay. That's a whole nother webinar, but
okay.
Yes.
Maybe let's perhaps carve that for another one or create that for another one. Do you process records over the summer? Records requests over the summer?
Yes, year round.
Year round. Okay. Did you destroy student records after they were digitized?
The $1 million question. Great question. So yeah, I stayed up late at night, many nights, having discussions with our leadership team. So what we've decided currently is, at this point, the answer is no. The only time we've any records across the district, we obviously follow our records manual and statute for the destruction of records. We certainly are still following that guideline, but as far as student records, we were, as Kristi mentioned, we were out of space in the warehouse, and our warehouse is not, it's an aluminum building with no AC heat kind of thing. So we were having some challenges. Yeah, in Florida, exactly. So okay. we had some challenges, but we were fortunate enough to have one of our a site that was a former school site that has now been partially turned into a handful of offices for our food service and nutrition area. And there's a lot of classrooms opened up, and it's a secure building. We have decided to manifest all of our active student records. We manifest them as part of the digitizing at the school level. We send those records to that records location. And at this time, we have decided from a district that we're going to store those there now. And moving forward, we see the benefit because we're no longer keeping the paper-based records once they're scanned in. At that point, those records that becomes the authoritative original record once it's scanned in. But we've decided initially to kind of minimize really that conversation and just kind of take it as a precaution. And we have had to go back. We've had to go back a handful of times already and just double check a record to make sure when you're scanning some of these records that are, if it's an ESE record, it's pretty thick. The scanning process and the scanners we're using are dead on. I've had a lot of history with this particular type of scanner. I did this prior in the military. Use the same product model, basically different model, but same product family in my former district. So that was probably a decision that was mine. I wasn't going to go with a different scanner because I just knew the history. These were rock solid, and they're right on. So the scanners that we're using are top notch, and but we haven't, to answer the question, we've not destroyed those student record files. We're going to keep them at this point in time, and maybe in 10, 15 years when I retire, somebody else can make that decision.
Okay. And do you have any anticipated savings on when a warehouse is no longer needed? It sounds like you're using, though, buildings and storage sites that are already school funded.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're going to probably do is our alumni records that we've had for years and years and years. I think our alumni records, we also have obviously microfiche that we've converted over. To answer that project, that records digitized question, I think our alumni records, once Scrib does the conversion of those records, I feel pretty confident today that our decision will be, we'll destroy those records. So those 3,000 boxes, which make up of alumni records, as well as some other records that we've got some records retention policies tagged to them. I think those records, I think we're going to gain that space back in the warehouse, which obviously our warehouse will be really excited with. And we shouldn't have that onslaught of boxes anymore. We'll have that other location where we have plenty of room, where we'll continue to store those records for the remaining schools. We've got 23 schools already stationed there now. We've got plenty of room. So I think the active records will stay there. I think the space, the area where we'll gain the most is the warehouse. And then obviously at the school level, our high schools used to be required to keep 5 years worth of alumni records, and then they would send them to the warehouse. So our schools are going to gain that space back because all the alumni records are being shipped to Scrib at the high school. We're only doing active student records. So you figure at a minimum, there's some resource room somewhere on every high school campus that's going to be freed up here shortly.
Well, that's terrific.
The other question there, it says, as your historical data grows.
Oh, yeah.
So again, one of the great things is contractually, we have unlimited storage in Scrib. So, you know, that footprint is there. I love the cost proposal, the pricing. That was a big deal. Obviously, we're not going to, you know, pricing comes into it at a play. I always tell my team, whatever we buy in IT, we're not going to start. You know, pricing does matter, obviously, but we're gonna pick the right project or the right product, and then we'll work out the pricing. That'll work itself out. But certainly, I think the pricing model that Scrib has is, I would say, after being in school districts for 20 plus years, it's competitive and it's realistic for us. And Kristi, I don't know if you want to just spend a minute. I know we're running out of time, and I got a hard stop here in about 10 minutes. But why don't you spend a minute or two about you know, the benefit we've done with transcripts, how we made a slight alteration in the charge of records, and what value we've seen there, because that's paid for half the product suite just in the transcript records requests we've received.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. You know, prior to using Scribbles, we had more of a paper-based system for records requests. People would come into the office, fill out a form, and we would process their request that way. In some cases, they would fax it in. Of course, when COVID hit, that became a lot more difficult for us to work with. So we were looking for different alternatives and came across Scribbles and Scriborder. And that actually made a huge difference for us. And in looking at other districts in our state and how some of them were using the product as well, and some of the fees that they were charging, we realized that we were very, very low. So we didn't get crazy, but we did take a look at several other districts and kind of come in somewhere in the middle, basically, from the low ball where we were at. And a lot of times we were charging, you know, $1 or maybe not even charging something. So just adding a few dollars to specific requests, or providing lower costs for students, but third-party organizations that want graduation verifications and things like that, charging them a little bit more, made a big difference. And we've also taken that revenue to throw towards this project, basically. We use it to help pay for things like our shredding of records once they've met retention. We use it to pay for our scanner supplies and things like that, and put it towards some of the conversion projects that we've had and those types of fees. So it's really actually kind of helped facilitate moving forward with this project so that it doesn't just fall on a team of 3 or 4 people in the district.
The Scribborder saved the day again. So were you charging a third party or corporate fee before Scribbles?
We were not, actually. We were doing phone verifications and so forth at that point, or they would send a fax and we would manage it that way. But unless they ordered like a transcript or something to that effect, we just did the verifications. And at that point, didn't really realize that that was not the most common practice.
Mm-hmm.
So
no. Yeah, you're doing a lot of work there. So yeah. No kidding.
So it really did make a difference.
Good. We're glad to hear that. And I know everybody's got a hard stop and we've gone way over, but this has been such a good story, and just, listening to what your district went through. And but what are your last thoughts? Anything you'd want to share? Anything that's, somebody's kind of making this decision or thinking about this, just last thoughts.
Kristi, would you like to add last thoughts, and then I'll follow up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say planning is a definite big thing. You don't want to just jump right into it, but communication and flexibility, also big keys. We found, with a lot of our meetings with different stakeholders, it worked really well for us to have work sessions with them and give them some hands-on time with what we were trying to do. It helped us kick the tires with processes. It helped them to see what was actually involved. It's one thing to just tell them what we're going to do, but for them to be able to have that hands-on experience, it helped in, I would say, refining our list and how we wanted to organize our files and our records. For example, our ESG department had several different categories that they wanted to use initially. And once we were able to actually sit down with them, we implemented it initially. It became clear that it was going to be more cumbersome than it had originally been thought. And so sat down with their team and showed them what was involved, had them breaking out files that way, and came away from the table with a much shorter list. So we were able to kind of streamline the process that way. And I would say just be flexible enough to make changes on the fly as you need to, and then communicate them out.
Thank you, Kristi.
Yeah, I'll just take 30 seconds. You'll never look at a staple the same way ever again. And I can say that through experience after 20 plus schools. So, and you'll find that the great work that the nurses and the clinic aides do in the in your schools, you'll find that they have an obsession with staples. So that's been kind of some of this. We've looked at it, staples a different way, but no. I know somebody had asked about the info. Certainly, the Scrib team share Kristi and mine's email. We'll be glad to put together some of our documents and business process. And down the road, when you want to engage some of your other team members of the district to get buy-in, we'll be more than happy to get on a call with your district and help you any way we can.
We really appreciate that very much. So Kristi and Scott, thank you for being here today and sharing your experience with Scrib folders. We hope you both have a great rest of the week, and we appreciate you offering up your information. And we'll probably you know, we'll get some more information from you after. We'll send you an email and we can clear that up. I also want to know if maybe you could share some of those, your stats, like who has scanned the most. There could be a reward in it for.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I'm thinking we're going to have. I'm thinking we're going to have T-shirts made at some point. But yeah, we're with the scanners that we're using. We're tracking just number of scans, those types of things. So I see some type of shirts in the making, when we get this project done.
All right, you keep us up to date with that.
Okay.
We'll be inquiring in those stats because we want to be able to offer something as well, because that's pretty impressive.
All right.
Thank you all for joining us today to hear more about the School District of Manatee County's journey with Scribbles. We have recorded this webinar, so you'll be able to view it. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time.